I'm doing good, as far as I know.
Welcome to the Noble Pen Podcast. Thanks for being on the show.
Oh no, thank you very much for having me. Excuse me, I'm about to move the whole world. There we go.
That's okay. All right. First off, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me about your writing. What inspires you? What's your favorite genre to write about?
Oh, I don't know if I have a favorite genre. Everything ends up being an adventure, though.
Okay.
I write an urban fantasy, survival horror, and I'm working on a crime novel. I've written some Western short stories and sci-fi, and it all ends up being meshed with some kind of adventure.
Okay. What genre do you feel like you do the best at, or is there not one?
There's not one really. I
That's
I
cool.
I feel like I'm doing just about as the same in all of them, which is either really good or really bad. I'm not sure.
Fairly bad, right? There's no
Yeah,
middle ground there, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Tell me about a work that you've published recently, or even one of your first ones that you want the viewers to know a little bit more about, something that you would like to get out there, one of your favorite stories you've written.
Well, actually, I just this last week I published a book called World of Trouble, Tribulation of Dax. I don't have a copy handy here with me. I think I left it at work.
That's
But
okay.
it's a post-apocalyptic uh, it's a post-apocalyptic adventure.
Okay.
Zombie apocalypse has come and gone, and now it's the world after.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And how did you come up with with your setting for that and your characters? How was that development created?
It was a writing prompt. I think the original publisher I was going to go with had a forum on their website,
I'm sorry,
and
had what?
a forum,
Okay.
and they had. Can you hear me all right? Should I use a headset?
No, it's okay. It just skipped a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, the original publisher I was going to go with had a forum on their website, and one of the writing prompts was, I think, zombie game show.
Oh, wow.
And what I came up with um, was a short story, actually, called Cemetery Gates, because
Okay.
that was the name of the show,
Right.
Cemetery Gates, right? And
Okay.
I wrote that, and it was actually one of the first zombie things I ever wrote,
Okay.
because prior to that, I'd been writing all Lovecraftian urban fantasy, kind of.
Yes. Yeah. It's it. You know what? A lot of people that I've interviewed, I don't know if you watch a lot of the shows, but a lot of people seem to reference Lovecraft quite a bit. I guess he's loved quite a bit.
Yeah, he's everywhere. Um,
Absolutely.
it's difficult to talk about Lovecraft without also touching on all the problematic things about the man, but yeah,
Can
he's
you go
been dead
into
so
depth
long.
about that for me? What do you mean?
Huh?
Can you go into depth about that for me?
Oh, well, anytime you read anything written by Lovecraft, especially when he goes into uh, the other, and not like the outer gods other, but like the other as in people, he's very dismissive of everything. Not wow. He's very Anglican,
Okay.
and in his personal views, he had a. Some of it can be dismissed as the general views at the time, and some of it is a little more is a little more virulent. But as he got older and he had more experience with people, more exposure to more different types of people, then that died off. But he died rather young, so he never really got to learn and grow as much as maybe he could have.
Oh, wow.
But he's also, he's been dead for a very long time. So, people, the effort to cancel Lovecraft now, it seems kind of, I don't know,
Neither here nor
misguided.
there.
Right.
Right.
Right. Seems
Okay.
kind of misguided. There are a lot of live authors with problematic views that we could talk about instead.
Okay.
In an effort to educate. I don't know. But in any case, that short story, World of Trouble, or Cemetery Gates, it got pretty long, and then at the end of it, it was too long to be a short story. No markets would touch it.
Right.
Not that I tried. I knew from the short market researches that I did that a novella, it was like 18,000 words.
Okay.
That's a hard sell. That's a pretty
Yeah.
hard sell.
Yeah, for sure.
And so somebody suggested that I write the further adventures of the main character, Terry Dax, and I did. And I've been working on this for a very long time. Since I wrote Cemetery Gates, I've written and published like 6 books.
Okay.
And now I've just published, what amounts to my very first serious work from
Oh,
then.
okay. Okay. Tell me something that you learned since you started writing that you wish you knew back then, like to help the viewers. Like I asked this question quite a bit because it seems like everybody has a different perspective on this, right?
All right.
So tell me something that you learned that you say, hey, this is the way to go about doing this type of writing. Or is there any advice you can give the viewers for that?
Normally when I get that kind of question, my first answer is kind of flippant. It's to lower your expectations.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because a lot of people, I participate in National Novel Writing Month,
Oh, that's pretty cool.
right?
Can you explain a little bit about that? What is that? How do you go about doing that if you wanted to?
November is National Novel Writing Month. There's a
Is that
website.
what the NaNoWriMo I see, like NaN, like those letters?
Yeah.
Okay.
NaNoWriMo.
Yeah, NaNoWriMo or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a website, nanowrimo.org, and you go sign up, and
Is it
there's
like a contest type situation or?
it's kind of like a contest. It's framed as a contest, but it's not really a contest. The only
Oh,
person you're competing against the only thing you're competing against is that 30-month deadline. The idea for Nano is to get 50,000 words into a first draft. And the way it's structured, it's there's a word tracker that you can enter your word count for the day, and it's to get you on a schedule. Basically, it's to get you on a writing schedule.
right. Okay.
That's basically what I use it for. Sometimes I've found myself in not a slump, but I haven't been very productive, so
Okay.
I'll participate.
Why do you think that is? You just haven't had time to write or
No, I've had the time. I just haven't had the
motivation?
drive, but the motivation. The brain it's just a lump of mush that it'll do what you tell it to do if you tell it to do it often enough. So something like Nano, it's a time where you can structure. Okay, I need 7 pages today. And
Okay.
if you do 7 pages, 7 standard manuscript format pages every day, an average of
Yeah.
250 words, you'll have in a month 50,000 words.
Right. Okay. Okay.
And that's how I use it.
Okay. Makes sense.
I
Tell me a
write.
time where if you have, like, say you sit down to write, you do want to write, you do have the motivation that day, but you can't really think of anything, almost like a writer's block type situation. How do you get over this? What helps you get through those times and to write quality content, or do you just quit for the day?
Now I write something else. If whatever I'm working on is not working that day, I turn around and write something else.
That makes sense. Just
And
to
that
kind of just invert the thoughts into something different, I guess.
that usually works. One of the things that you'll come across as a writer is when people find out you're a writer,
Mm-hmm.
they have ideas for you, right?
Okay.
And it's a hard thing to tell them. Well, hello. It's a hard thing to tell them that you know what, I have far more ideas than I will possibly ever write. So I don't.
Right.
It feels awkward to say I don't need your ideas because I will never write everything. I have
Okay.
a huge list of unfinished things that are just mocking me.
Right.
Uh, uh,
Okay.
so that thing. Another thing for writers is and I had a thought process right until the cat jumped into my lap. Now
That's
it's
okay.
therapy.
What's
Now
the
it's
hardest
therapy.
thing for you about writing? How's that? What's the
The
hardest
what?
thing for you? What's the hardest thing to get through about your writing?
It's all the aftercare, all the aftercare that goes into the revisions and edits. The way my brain is, once I'm done writing something, and I'm done. You
Okay.
know, I once I've written at the
So
end
you
of a
don't want to
manuscript,
rewrite it. You don't want to edit it. It's just you read it. It's it. You want it out.
I want it done. I don't want to look at it anymore. But that's the process. You have to have an editor, and that's another thing that I tell people. Um, everybody needs an editor. It doesn't matter who you are or how
Okay.
good you are. You
Mhm.
need an editor because you have a blind spot where it
How do
comes
you
to
go
your writing.
about? Let me ask you this: how do you go about trusting A, which editor to go with, and B, what to listen to from the editor? Because I've heard from a couple of people. I've had obviously you see starting this podcast. I've had a lot of conversations with a lot of authors, and it
Yep.
seems like editors sometimes seem like they want to change people's story a little bit too much. How do you avoid this?
Well, editing is basically a suggestion. You don't have to change everything
Right.
that the editor tells you. Matter of fact, Ian McKinnon. I don't know if you've ever read any of Ian's works.
I've heard of him. I've never read. I don't honestly read that much. I'm more of a writer. I know it sounds weird, and I should read more. I plan to after I move. I'm going through a move here, but yeah,
Yeah.
I have not. I have not read Ian yet.
Well, he's very good.
Okay.
Um, and recently he went through a program to get his master's
Oh, that's cool.
in writing. I know that's a I don't think that's exactly, I got a master's in writing. I don't think that's it, but it's what it boils down to. But
Okay.
what he told us the other day, we were having a little chat, a couple of us,
Do you
and he
personally
said,
know this author? You're saying?
yeah,
Oh, wow, that's cool.
yeah, we were having a little chat. There was a small group of us, and he said that one of the things he's learned is that if somebody reads your stuff
Hmm.
and they suggest that something needs to be changed, they're 100% correct. But the method that they want to change it is probably 100% wrong.
Okay.
So if you have a beta reader or, just anybody that's reading your stuff and they come up to you and they say, I think this needs to change, they're probably right.
Okay. And where do you get that perspective from? Like, is that you just because you want your readers to like what they're reading? Is that where you're grasping that from?
Well, I do want, as both the artist and the seller, right?
Hmm.
From an artistic point of view, I do, I get that endorphin kick when people come up to me and they say, "Yes, I read that and I liked it very much."
Right.
Right? We do
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
that, but I also get, from a purely mercenary sense, uh, I, I would like for everybody to read my stuff and give me money.
Okay. Makes sense. All
Yeah,
right. Speaking of money, let's go into marketing for a second here to
sure.
see what your view is on that. How do you go about your marketing? What marketing do you use? And do you think there's any marketing out there, especially for self-published authors, that seem to work a little better than others?
I don't really have the requisite self-publishing or the self-marketing gene to be a successful indie author.
Okay.
Because it feels like, for me, it feels like self-marketing on social media, especially, is like being in a fish market. You know, there's mongers on every side. They're screaming about, you know, hey, check my wares. Try my fish, try my book. Here's a collection of short stories. Here's a new novel. I have a series that I've started, and it's on every side all the time, unceasing.
I've noticed that. Yeah, absolutely.
So I kind of just gave up on it. But so with the new book coming out last week, you know, I'm looking for ways myself to do a bit of self marketing.
I'm hoping
So
this podcast can help you out. It seems like it's gaining a lot of ground so far.
I hope so. I mean, that would be neat.
Mm-hmm.
There's an author named Timothy W. Long.
Okay.
He is really very good with the marketing. He's ruthless and he's successful, very successful.
Okay.
Like for other books, I've been paired with D.L. Snell.
Okay.
A couple of my previous books, Pavlov's Dogs and The Omega Dog, where I wrote with him, and he's also got that gene. He's also got that hey, look at us, we have a book, and he'll go through. We've done the book bub.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, I all the information I have on that is 10 years old, so I don't know if it still works, but when we did our book bub, we did it two separate quarters, and we were in the top sellers for the publisher for the two quarters.
Oh,
So
wow.
it
Okay.
worked. It worked then. I don't know if it works now, but it worked then, definitely.
Okay.
We did together and separately. We did blog tours, and there is a service, I guess, that will book you on a blog tour, but I don't know the
Yeah.
information because the at the time the publisher did all that, and Snell, I think, set a couple of those up.
Okay. All right.
So once again, I was just along for the ride, which was good for me at the time, but now it's bad for me because I don't know any of the details.
Right.
There's the Bold Mom.
Okay.
She does a lot of horror promos.
Okay.
And
Is this a mainstream author or like a self-published?
no, it's just a website for promotions and reviews.
Oh, okay. Okay. And anybody can sign up with this? You got to like subscribe to it or?
No, you just go and contact them. They
Okay.
have a contact form on their page, I think, and you just
Okay.
go and contact them. And once if they're interested, they'll help you out. And they've been very good.
That's
Um,
cool.
and depending on your genre, there's probably a lot of groups on Facebook. Like my first published work, my first published novel was Survivors.
Okay.
That was in the Morningstar Strain trilogy.
Okay.
About 10 years ago, I guess. And there are a lot of zombie groups on Facebook, and the big one is the Zombie Book of the Month Club.
That's
And if somebody read your book and likes it, they'll nominate it, and then other members in the group, you know, they have a vote every month for who's going to be the book of the month. And if your book is the book of the month, then you are a guest host for the group for the entire month, and you get to run giveaways and trivia stuff and get people interested in the work. And
Oh, wow.
it's a solid month of very targeted marketing, I guess.
Yeah, that's very cool. Absolutely.
So that's pretty nice.
How do you go about your writing technique? And like, let's say when you're in the middle of writing for the day, how do you know when you're kind of just like rambling at that point and when to stop and make the cut and the divide with your good content?
As long as I get to keep writing, I keep writing, because that's what editing is for. That's what editing is for.
Makes sense.
My my literary hero is Robert B. Parker.
Okay.
He wrote the Spencer series. It's like 40 books. And
Oh,
his
wow.
deal was 5 pages a day, every day but Sunday.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
and it worked for him.
Yeah, really.
So that's what when I'm writing, when I got something to work on, that's what my goal is. Every like several pages a day. When I used to work offshore, and when I was offshore, I would write for 2 hours a day after my shift.
Oh, wow.
I would write for 2 hours a day, and then
Was it
every day for 3
nonfiction
days.
about your work offshore or just something completely separate from what you were doing?
Oh no, it was novels. It was completely separate.
Okay.
It
Okay. Do you
was
ever plan on writing about your work offshore?
not in a nonfiction sense. No,
No.
no, and I don't plan on writing anything nonfiction. So
Okay.
I have
Just
all the
not your
places like
style or
no, it's yeah, it's just not my style.
right.
I
Okay.
imagine if I put my mind to it, I could probably write an essay about some things, but uh, I have I have goofy stories to tell, so I tell goofy stories instead. I use settings. I use the settings. Offshore oil rig is a good setting, especially if you have good knowledge of the workings and you can write a realistic story. Not realistic in the sense that the things could actually happen, but realistic in the sense that the setting feels real.
Feels real. Right. Okay.
So I've
Okay.
been in the Navy. I was a submariner, so I got that. I've worked
Wow.
offshore drilling. Um, I've worked in manufacturing for the past 10 years at, places like Samsung, and I've worked in a machine shop and uh, IV bag manufacturing. And now I work in a place that makes tests for Ds.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
so I have a different bit of background to choose from if I decide
Yeah,
that I'm going to
absolutely.
write something in
Okay.
a certain setting.
Tell me about one of your most interesting characters and what makes them so unique to you.
Well, unique to me. My urban fantasy series, Tales of the Century,
Okay.
has the century is in the story. The century is a collection of 100 wizards that are there to enforce the Great Pact, which has been in force for the last 2,000 years.
Okay.
It doesn't. So the Great Pact doesn't protect people only. It also protects monsters because we outnumber them,
Oh,
right?
wow. Okay.
Uh,
That's a perspective for sure.
yeah. So the century, and one of my centurions is his name is Yo, I-O,
Okay.
and he is, I think, the youngest centurion. And I wish I had a bit of. I don't know if I can share my screen with you because I have back when I worked offshore, I had a little bit of money and I had some commissions made. Of character drawings. Yeah, I wish I knew how to share that, but I am.
Yeah. No, that would be very cool.
I'm not up technologically speaking on Skype. I don't know how to do this. Oh, share screen. Let me find it while I speak.
Okay.
And if my browser is going to participate, here we go.
Yeah.
But Tales of the Century, he is a wizard, basically.
Okay.
And here we go. All right. I have this full screen, so let me.
Maybe you could just turn the camera, or is it a laptop camera?
It's a laptop.
Yeah. So you'd have to do a share screen situation.
All right. I clicked on it.
All right, here we go.
Can you see it?
No, what it's showing me is a blank. Now it popped up. Oh yeah, okay, he looks pretty
Go.
cool.
That's Yo.
Okay, did you draw him? You said you drew him yourself, or you had somebody create him for you?
I had someone draw this for me from a description.
Okay, okay.
But I gave him the tagline for him is basically it's a Dirty Harry Potter, right?
Okay. There you go.
So,
very cool. He's very cool. All right. If you could pick the brain of one mainstream author, like one of your favorite authors you ever read, who would it be and why?
Actually, I've had a chance to do this. One of my favorite authors is William Browning Spencer.
Okay, and is he mainstream or?
He was for a while.
Okay.
He was for a while.
What makes him your favorite? Why?
He writes terrible things, but he writes it with a kind of whimsy. Like one of his books is called Resume with Monsters.
Okay.
And it's set in basically a guy works for a large faceless company, and he thinks that it might either be or powered by one of the old ones. And he has a job there because he's following his ex.
Okay.
And it seems pretty creepy, kind of stalkerish, the way he's following his ex. But she is working her way up the ladder, and he's worried about her because of these old and the danger they represent. And obviously, he sounds crazy.
Right.
But he's right. So
okay.
That's one of the, it's a pretty unique, not setting, but it's a pretty unique idea, and it's well executed. It's very well executed. He wrote another book called Zald Wallop, and this is where it comes back to Lovecraft. Zald Wallop is about a children's book written by an author who was in not seclusion. He was committed. He was committed because he lost the author in the book lost his daughter, and he kind of lost his touch with reality after that. And so while he was committed, he was subjected to some kind of testing, some kind of drug test, or a drug test, not a drug test. What's the word I'm looking for here?
Like a mental testing?
No, like they tested drugs on them, like an experimental drug.
Okay, like an experimental then.
Right. So he was part of an experiment, and the book he created while under the influence of that is actually changing reality.
Oh, wow.
Except it's not the book that got published. The book that got published had a happy ending, and things worked out. In the book that he originally wrote, it was very, very dark because he was in a very dark place. That is the book that's overriding reality.
Okay.
So that's William Browning Spencer, and I got to sit with him because I'm in Austin, Texas, and he was also in Austin, Texas. So I reached out and I said, "How are you? I'm a fan, and I'm also an author, and I would like some time to pick your brain." And we actually met at a coffee shop, and he talked to me and answered my questions for about 45 minutes. That's really one of the things that he said to me, which is a good piece of advice, but to keep in mind that all pieces of advice are coming from a place of this worked for me. Right. Nobody's got the guru hat like this will work for everybody. Nobody's got that hat.
Right.
One of the things he said that stuck with me is that your story is like an archaeological dig. You make a couple of like really big holes in what you're looking for, and then once you find something, you slow down and you get the little brush and you search out the details of it, find the edges of it.
Oh, okay, like you're weeding things out.
Right. I've got the general idea here when you start digging, and then when you find the edges of something, right, that slows you down, and it's like, okay, this you can hone in on what you're trying to get across.
So basically, an outline.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
One of the other things that came out of this, like Nano, is people. What was the first thing I said? Lower your expectations, right?
Lower your expectations, right?
I see on the boards, because there's a discussion boards in Nano, people are like, how do I get my book? Well, first of all, how do I get my book published? And I'm here to tell you, anything that you write as a first draft is not going to get published in the next month. Not
No.
by anybody reputable.
No, definitely no.
And you certainly shouldn't do it yourself. Not until it's been through a round of readings and edits and revisions and all that.
Oh yeah.
Comes with it. But one of the other things I saw was, should my book be a series? Well, why don't you worry about finishing the first book, right? I always bring up, and I know it's cliche at this point, but I always bring up Star Wars.
Okay.
Right? George Lucas has said that he always knew it would be more than one movie, but he didn't know he was going to get to make more than one movie. So that first movie has a beginning, middle, and an end.
Right.
That first movie has a complete story arc, and even if you never see the rest of them, you've got a complete story in the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that what drives me nuts as a reader is when I get to the end of a book and I find out that I need another book just to finish the story.
Okay.
Books that end on cliffhangers.
Mm-hmm. A lot of them do.
Or the book has just only served to introduce a conflict and the characters, and that's it. It's basically Act 1. That drives me up the wall.
Okay.
And so, when people the first thing that they say is like, I've started writing a book and I'm wondering if it should be a series. I always say that. Make sure your first book is a complete story. It may not be the whole story you want to tell, but it's a complete story in and of itself.
In itself, right. That's actually great advice. That's actually great advice. I really appreciate that.
I kind of lost track of the other thing.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I got another question here for you.
Sure.
Would you consider killing off a character that your readers loved? And if you would, why?
Yeah, definitely. Because no, I don't know. It, especially in a series, if you make somebody too safe, then it loses its edge.
Its edge, right? Absolutely.
So, especially if you have an ensemble cast, if you have if you start out with 1 or 2 people and you end up with 9 people who's your cast of characters. Anytime you see these characters in a book, you're like, okay, well, I know there's going to be some danger, but this person is safe.
Yeah.
And since I just brought up Star Wars, I will again bring up Star Wars. Way back, I say 20 years ago, they did something called the New Jedi Order.
Okay.
Where an invading force came from outside the galaxy, came from another galaxy, their galaxy. And in the very first book, I know there's spoilers, the very first book is called Vector Prime. And in that book, they kill off a main Star Wars character, and nobody saw it coming. Because it was a main beloved character, and they whacked him.
Why do you think that was? Just to create that emotion for that moment, just to get people to really feel something?
I don't think it's just for that moment either. It had lasting repercussions for the rest of the characters.
Okay.
And
have him carry on with, obviously.
Right. And he was a big part of the ensemble cast. And the other thing is to show that this extragalactic force was a real threat. Because they'd been fighting the Empire and remnants of the Empire for years and years and years, and they'd always come out on top, one way or the other. And now this new thing came along, and somebody got killed. Or if you watch, have you ever watched The Shield?
I've heard of it. I've never watched it.
Well, I'm gonna ruin it for you, but
that's fine.
In The Shield, you have your main cast of characters, the strike team. There's 4 people in the strike team, and then there's other police around them, other detectives, other uniformed officers. And in the Shield, they go from danger to danger, and finally, it's 7 seasons long, and they start to lose some people along the way. And when
Well,
it happens, it's very
that's gonna
impactful.
happen. Yeah.
Not only just because it happens, but the way it happens, and who does it, and you know the reasons behind it.
Right.
So
Okay.
if it comes down to it, if it serves the needs of the story, then somebody's got to go.
Okay.
You know?
Okay.
And if the readers are upset about it, they could latch on to a new character, or they could vote with their dollar and go find another author to read. And that's
Yeah.
just how it goes sometimes.
That's just how it goes. Right. Okay. We're giving you the reins here without asking you a specific question. What point of advice would you want to give other authors that are going to be watching this podcast? Because that's what I essentially started it for. It's not just for the viewers, not for the fame, it's not for any of that. I was
Yeah.
actually initially looking for a podcast myself to learn some things I need to learn about a new genre I'm trying to write. And I couldn't find anything that had any like quality information. It was
Right.
more just like most podcasts out there are more just like a Q&A, you know what I mean? Okay, this is what I feel, that's it. You know what I mean? There's nothing really that's that personable. And that's
Right.
what I'm looking to create here. Now that being said, do you have any information that you'd want to put out there and without me asking, like I think you should do this as a new author. This will help you in your starting journey of writing.
Ooh. Ooh, man, that's
That's deep,
like
right?
yeah. Like I said earlier, I don't have as Peter Kleins puts it, I don't have a guru hat. I don't
Right.
have answers that will work for everybody, but I do have some things that work for me specifically.
Right.
One of the things I said earlier was that the brain will do what you tell it to do is if you tell it to do it off.
Okay.
So, and a lot of people end up with habits, and sometimes they're bad habits.
Such
One of
as
the one of the things I see is like they'll make themselves like a writing nest. The habits so that it's very cozy, it's very comfortable, and they can feel creative, right? And they have their blanket or a setting or a
okay.
playlist or a lucky mug
Right.
or the keyboard or their favorite pen or whatever.
Yeah.
And as much as that may feel good to you, what
Mhm.
you're doing is you're telling your brain, these are the things that I need in order to write. So when you don't have those things,
You
guess
can't
what happens?
can't write.
You can't write. So
Hmm.
if I was to say anything that worked for me, and I think it'll work for everybody else, is don't create that habit.
Okay.
And if you do have that habit, uh, in order to break it, or you can't break it, because that would take years of therapy.
Yeah.
So once you have something in your head, so you can
Hmm.
create new habits. You
Okay.
can create new habits and overlap, times. If you're like, this is the time that I write, and then you're not in that time or that time's not available, well, you have to write another time. So what I've started to do is when I have an idea, I'll start something in Word because I use Word.
Okay.
But once it's started and I have a format, I upload it to Google Docs. And that way, if I'm not on my laptop or my computer, I can still work on it. If I go to work and I have a break, I can work on it. If I'm at
Wow.
a friend's house and I have 15 minutes to do something and I can use their computer, I can work on it anywhere. As long as I have an internet connection and a keyboard, I can work on it. And so that's what I do. That's how I made the word count for Nano.
Okay. Okay.
And
That makes perfect sense.
when I worked offshore, I had that nest. I had that writer's nest. I said I wrote for 2 hours a day because
Yeah.
I had a chair and a blanket, and I had a keyboard in my lap and laptop on the desk, and I had music. I had a playlist, and that was great. I put out a lot of words while I was doing that, and
Okay.
then I got laid off, and all of a sudden I didn't have that routine anymore because I didn't have 2 hours to myself every day.
Right.
Uh, I didn't have that chair, that blanket, that laptop, that keyboard, that space. I didn't have any of that stuff. So
Okay.
I lost productivity for some years until I
Yeah.
found a new habit.
Okay.
And my new habit is write anywhere, and that
Okay.
served me much better.
Okay. Well, that sounds good. That sounds fantastic, actually. That's really good advice for the viewers. Do you have any of your works that are by you? I know you left your one at work. Do you have anything else that you would want to show so the viewers can see?
Yeah, I do. Just a second. Let me grab it.
Yeah, okay.
I talked about earlier, I talked about my urban fantasy series, Tales of the Century.
Tales of the Century, correct.
And here are the first two books.
Can you bring it more to the center? Because it looks a little blurry-ish. There we go. Before the Dawn and Vampire Sky.
Yes, sir. Book one.
Okay, so Before the Dawn is part 1 and Vampire Sky is part 2.
Yes.
Okay, perfect, perfect.
These are the Tales of the Century. And I started my career in the literary publishing sense as an editor. The first thing I did was it was something called Cthulhu Unbound. With I co-edited that with John Sinceri, and so I have a lot of contacts in the literary world, especially indie authors. I know a lot of indie authors, and I have a lot of contact information for a lot of indie authors. So when the time came for me to work on that, I was also able to do this.
Oh wow, that cover is awesome.
This is
what's the name of this book?
Wizards of Mass Destruction.
Okay.
And the conceit for this is history is a lie.
Oh, wow.
What happened? Why did the Hindenburg go down? Why did the Titanic go down? Why did was Pompeii destroyed by a volcano? Right? Earthquakes, hurricanes, there's Great Chicago Fire. The reasons behind all of that isn't always natural disasters or whatever. Sometimes it's the wizards of mass destruction.
Oh wow.
So I enticed several other authors, David Dunwoody, C. Delaney, Dave Vojtovich, Victoria Chase, Ryan McCall, Clyde Wolfe, Matthew Baugh, maybe it's Bo, Gary Butner, C.T. Phipps, and T.S. Mata, as well as now her name is Michelle Butcher, but it was Michelle Kilmer when she contributed to this.
Okay.
Those are all books set in the Tales of the Century universe.
Okay.
All right, those are all short stories set in there, and it's all a historical event. There's the Great Blackout of 2005, I think it was, from the Northeast, 2005. There's something set for Roanoke. There's one for the sinking of the oh man, I can't remember the name of it. I should be better versed in this. I can't remember the name of the ship that sank at the end of the Civil War. There was a steamer that sunk on the Mississippi that caught on fire, and that's what one of the stories is about.
Okay.
Stories is about there's a hurricane in here. There's a trial of Herculaneum. Herculaneum is that went up by a volcano.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's book 3 right now. Not right this second, but I'm working on book 3 right now. It's almost finished, and book 4 is outlined.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It sounds like you got a lot of good things going on, Thom. I appreciate you being on the show today. It sounds like you brought a lot of good information to the table, and I really appreciate you being a part of this whole thing. That being said, I plan on bringing you back on the show maybe in 6 months or a year. See where you're further down the line. Maybe you got some more things to bring to the table. That sound cool to you?
Sure, that sounds great.
Awesome.
The chance, especially now. Like I said, I don't have that self-marketing gene. So when this popped up, I was like, I'm doing it.
Yep, absolutely.
I didn't have a question.
Anything is help. You know what I mean? Like I said, I'm just trying to help other authors. Now they'll be able to watch your video and say, you know what? Thom had some good things to teach me here. And maybe some people will adapt, some things that you said. That's the idea.
It would be nice. I got a lot of writing advice from good writers early in my career, and one of them, Peter Klein's, has a ranty blog where he writes about writing all the time.
That's pretty cool.
So if anybody there is interested in that good advice, Peter Klein's, his ranty blog. I don't have the link in front of me, but if you Google Peter Klein's ranty blog, that Blogspot thing will come up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Thom. I'll have this spun down and I'll send it out to you as soon as I get it done.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks. Bye.